Episode 56 at September 16, 2023. White House Council on Environmental Quality. Environmental news, websites, and tools. The latest news for you. White House Council on Environmental Quality engagement at ceq.eop.gov via auth.cccsen.com. Environmental news. Last week, the Biden-Harris administration announced significant steps to protect the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and more than 13 million acres in the National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska. These bold actions to protect the Arctic region build on President Biden's historic conservation and climate agenda, which already includes protecting more than 21 million acres of public lands and waters across the nation, and securing the Inflation Reduction Act, the largest investment in climate action in history. On Thursday, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack and CEQ Chair Brenda Mallory announced the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Forest Service is awarding more than $1 billion in competitive grants to 385 projects to plant and maintain trees, combat extreme heat and climate change, and improve access to nature in cities, towns, and suburbs where more than 84% of Americans live, work, and play. Communities in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and several U.S. territories and tribal nations are receiving funding. The Urban and Community Forestry Program is part of President Biden's Justice 40 initiative, and all awarded funds will reach disadvantaged communities. Learn more about the announcement and USDA's Urban and Community Forestry Program here. Earlier this week, the White House released an updated technical assistance guide that provides information on federal and state technical assistance programs aimed at accessing and deploying bipartisan infrastructure law and Inflation Reduction Act funding. The updated Technical Assistance Guide builds on the Bipartisan Infrastructure Laws Guidebook, Rural Playbook, and Tribal Playbook, and the Inflation Reduction Act's Guidebook and Tribal Playbook. Also this week, the Interagency Working Group on Mining Laws, Regulations, and Permitting, IWG, released its final report containing recommendations to reform and improve the way mining is conducted on U.S. public lands. The report will inform efforts to modernize the mining law of 1872 and related federal permitting processes as part of the administration's efforts to increase domestic supplies of critical minerals and uphold the strongest environmental, labor and community engagement standards. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, announced more than $100 million from President Biden's Investing in America agenda to expand recycling infrastructure and waste management systems across the country, representing EPA's largest recycling investment in 30 years. EPA has selected 25 communities to receive grants totaling more than $73 million under the newly created Solid Waste Infrastructure for Recycling funding opportunity. In addition, the agency is making available approximately $32 million for states and territories to improve solid waste management planning, data collection, and implementation of plans. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development announced it has awarded approximately $18 million in grant funding and loan commitments under the Green and Resilient Retrofit Program, GRRP, to owners of properties participating in HUD-assisted multifamily housing programs as part of President Biden's Investing in America agenda. Investments under the program will be made in affordable housing communities serving low-income families in accordance with the Biden-Harris administration's Justice 40 goals. The U.S. Department of Energy, DOE, released a new interactive map series showcasing, in localized detail, where clean energy investments are occurring across the United States thanks to President Biden's Investing in America agenda. This new interactive tool will serve as a valuable resource for tracking the industrial revitalization happening across the country, fostered by a clean energy transition that will be built by American workers. Explore DOE's interactive map here. #ISAMI, in case you missed it. As part of President Biden's Investing in America agenda, last week the U.S. Department of Energy, DOE, announced 9 states and 5 tribal nations will receive a combined total of $125 million as the 7th cohort of Grid Resilience State and Tribal Formula grants. Supported by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and administered by DOE's Grid Deployment Office, these grants will help modernize the electric grid to reduce impacts of climate-driven extreme weather and natural disasters while also ensuring power sector reliability. This funding will enable communities to access affordable, reliable, and clean electricity while helping deliver on the President's ambitious clean energy goals. Also, last week the Department of Commerce and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration announced $24 million for projects that will tackle the climate crisis by researching marine carbon dioxide removal strategies, as part of President Biden's Investing in America agenda. $14 million from the Inflation Reduction Act, the largest climate investment in history, will go toward 10 projects that examine how effectively and safely strategies like enhancing ocean alkalinity or sinking seaweed remove carbon from the atmosphere. Keep reading for more environmental updates from the Biden-Harris administration and to learn about opportunities to provide public input on ongoing energy and environmental initiatives. If you were forwarded this email or are not on our list yet, please sign up here. Resource Hub. Invest.gov, interactive map showing the historic public and private sector investments President Biden's Investing in America agenda is bringing to states and territories across America. Bipartisan infrastructure law maps, updated map reflecting the more than 20,000 projects and funding announced in communities across the United States. Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Technical Assistance Guide, new guide highlighting programs that help communities navigate programs and resources that can help them deliver infrastructure, clean energy and climate resilience projects. Inflation Reduction Act Guidebook. This guidebook provides an overview of the clean energy, climate mitigation and resilience, agriculture, and conservation-related tax incentives and investment programs in President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, including who is eligible to apply for funding and for what activities. Inflation Reduction Act Tribal Guidebook. Guidebook to the Inflation Reduction Act's clean energy and climate investments in Indian country, which provides clear descriptions of the law's tax incentives and funding programs for which tribes are eligible. Direct pay through the Inflation Reduction Act. Find resources on the Inflation Reduction Act's elective pay, often called direct pay, provisions, through which tax-exempt and governmental entities can, for the first time, take advantage of tax credits for building clean energy projects. Grants.gov. Learn about current federal grant opportunities. CleanEnergy.gov, a one-stop shop for Inflation Reduction Act policy updates. DOE Interactive Map, interactive tool showcasing where clean energy investments are occurring across the United States thanks to President Biden's Investing in America agenda. Energy Savings Hub, Department of Energy, access resources made possible by President Biden's Investing in America plan, which will help lower your energy costs, make your home safer and more comfortable, and help the planet. Environmental Justice Scorecard. Find information about what federal agencies are doing to advance environmental justice in communities across America. News clips of the week. AP, USDA grants $1 billion across the country to plant trees in hopes of reducing extreme heat. The Hill, EPA, climate law will cut carbon emissions up to 43%. The Hill, U.S. Forest Service awards $1 billion in grants to boost green space access. New York Times, Biden administration to bar drilling on millions of acres in Alaska. Washington Post, Biden to block oil drilling in irreplaceable Alaskan wildlands. Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Atlanta, nonprofits getting millions for urban tree protection. KRQE, Fox/CBS Albuquerque, New Mexico groups get $20.5 million in grants from USDA Forest Service. Colorado Sun, 8 Colorado communities will benefit from millions of federal dollars to plant trees. Tweets of the week. Secretary Jennifer Granholm, U.S. Department of Energy, at SEC Granholm. America is pioneering innovative EV charging infrastructure and making EV driving more accessible. With the $100 million at POTUS just made available at ENERG and at USDOTER helping states repair and replace outdated EV chargers, increasing charging reliability across America. Chair Brenda Mallory, White House Council on Environmental Quality, at Brenda Mallory 46. At POTUS set a bold goal to cut in half the number of people that don't have access to parks and nature by the end of the decade. That's why today, at SEC Vilsack and I announced $1 billion in funding from at USDA to expand access to green space in underserved communities nationwide. Secretary Marcia L. Fudge, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, at SEC Fudge. As a part of POTUS's historic investment in climate resiliency, HUD is building a more equitable and sustainable housing system. This funding will invest in properties by making upgrades like adding solar panels, updating heating and cooling, and replacing windows. U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, at EPA. Today, we announced the largest investment in recycling in 30 years. $105 million to help communities build stronger, more resilient, and cost-effective U.S. municipal solid waste recycling systems. https://epa.gov/news releases/Biden-Harris administration invests more $100 million recycling infrastructure projects. Requests for information and public comment. Federal agencies are seeking public input to help inform the development of funding opportunities, grant processes, policy and program implementation. Below is a list of open requests for information where you can submit your comments/feedback. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, request for information on equitable delivery of climate services. Summary, the U.S. Department of Commerce, Department, via the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, requests additional input from interested parties on how to enhance NOAA's delivery of climate data, information, science, and tools, climate services, and ensure that this delivery is equitable and accounting for the needs and priorities of a diverse set of user communities as they engage in climate preparedness, adaptation, and resilience planning. Building on the work that NOAA is already doing to prepare communities for increasing climate impacts, the input from this Request for Information, RFI, will be used to create an action plan that will inform more equitable and inclusive design, production, and delivery of climate services for users of all disciplines and backgrounds. Link, https://www.federalregister.gov/document/202030-15432/077/2020-2020-for-information-on-equitable-delivery-of-climate-services. Deadline, September 21, 2023. White House Council on Environmental Quality, proposed bipartisan permitting reform implementation rule. Summary: the Council on Environmental Quality, CEQ, is proposing this bipartisan Permitting Reform Implementation Rule to revise its regulations for implementing the procedural provisions of the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, including to implement the Fiscal Responsibility Act's amendments to NEPA. CEQ proposes the revisions to provide for an effective environmental review process that promotes better decision-making, ensure full and fair public involvement, provide for an efficient process and regulatory certainty, and provide for sound decision-making grounded in science, including consideration of relevant environmental, climate change, and environmental justice effects. CEQ proposes these changes to better align the provisions with CEQ's extensive experience implementing NEPA, CEQ's perspective on how NEPA can best inform agency decision making, long-standing federal agency experience and practice, NEPA's statutory text and purpose, including making decisions informed by science, and case law interpreting NEPA's requirements. CEQ invites comments on the proposed revisions. Link: https://www.federalregister.gov/document/2023/01/4005/national-environmental-policy-act-revisions-phases-2. Deadline: September 29, 2023. Green spaces in communities and neighborhoods nationwide through Investing in America agenda. Today, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack announced the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Forest Service is awarding more than $1 billion in competitive grants to plant and maintain trees, combat extreme heat and climate change, and improve access to nature in cities, towns, and suburbs where more than 84% of Americans live, work, and play. Communities in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and several U.S. territories and tribal nations are receiving funding, covered by the Justice 40 initiative and made possible by President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, the largest climate investment in history. Full announcement here. Press release: HUD announces funding to support energy efficiency and climate resilience in multifamily assisted housing properties as part of President Biden's Investing in America agenda. As part of President Biden's Investing in America agenda, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, today announced it has awarded approximately $18 million in grant funding and loan commitments under the Green and Resilient Retrofit Program, GRRP, to owners of properties participating in HUD-assisted multifamily housing programs. President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, the largest climate investment in history, established the GRRP with more than $800 million in grant and loan subsidy funding and $4 billion in loan commitment authority. It is the first HUD program to simultaneously invest in energy efficiency, renewable energy generation, climate resilience, and low-embodied carbon materials in HUD-assisted multifamily housing. Investments under the program will be made in affordable housing communities serving low-income families in accordance with the Biden-Harris administration's Justice 40 goals and advance Bidenomics, President Biden's agenda for building the American economy from the middle out and the bottom up. Today's first wave of awards will help fund upgrades for 28 multifamily properties with more than 3,400 HUD-assisted multifamily rental homes for low-income families, seniors, and persons with disabilities. Full announcement here. Press release: DOE announces $25 million to help communities expand affordable and reliable clean energy across America. The U.S. Department of Energy, DOE, today announced up to $25 million through the Clean Energy to Communities, C2C, Partnerships Program to help 6 community teams develop tailored decarbonization strategies and clean energy solutions. Local governments, electric utilities, and community-based groups working closely with experts from DOE's national laboratories will utilize $8 million in award funding and up to $17 million in technical assistance to research, model, and deploy clean energy systems that are reliable, affordable, equitable, and reflective of local priorities. By helping communities develop customized clean energy solutions, today's announcement supports the Biden-Harris administration's continued efforts to ensure every community. Announcements from the Biden-Harris administration. Press release: Biden-Harris administration invests $1 billion for nearly 400 projects to expand access to treason. Benefits from the transition to a clean energy future and reaching President Biden's ambitious climate goals. Full announcement here. Press release: Interior Department announces more than $40.6 million for collaborative efforts to conserve America's most imperiled species. The Department of the Interior today announced more than $40.6 million in grants through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to 10 states and the U.S. Virgin Islands to support land acquisition and conservation planning projects on over 7,200 acres of habitat for 65 listed and at-risk species through the Cooperative Endangered Species Conservation Fund, CESCF. The grants help support the Biden-Harris administration's America the Beautiful initiative, and will be matched by more than $17.6 million in partner funds. Full announcement here. A letter sent on August 28, 2023 to the Assistant Attorney Generals threatening to sue the EPA over wood stove certification follows. Dear Assistant Attorney General, attached is a letter that was sent to the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, NIAID, Director Dr. Jean Marazzo, former Acting NIAID Director Dr. Hugh Auchincloss and National Institutes of Health, NIH, Director Dr. Lawrence Tabak regarding regulation and the ability to shut down PM 2.5 polluting indoor residential wood burners. PM 2.5 pollution is known to cause antibiotic resistance, making infectious disease pandemics more likely and uncontrollable. The letter asks Dr. Marazzo to apply a parallel track to indoor residential wood burning pollution in 2023. This parallel track would include both EPA wood stove certification and a complaint-based system using Purple Air PM 2.5 monitor data collected from the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. This would be a way to address the very real impact of PM 2.5 pollution which EPA wood stove certification fails to address. We propose that the use of Purple Air monitors would provide important data on PM 2.5 air pollution that is currently missing in the EPA wood stove certification. This proposal is modeled on the approach Dr. Anthony Fauci used in 1989 that allowed a parallel track of both the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, use of AZT for AIDS that had the unfortunate side effect of blindness along with a second drug, ganciclovir, that actually cured the blindness. An earlier letter sent to your office asked that you include a complaint-based system of regulating indoor residential wood burning using Purple Air PM 2.5 data in your suit against the EPA. Indoor residential wood burners are already ineffectively certified by the EPA. This violates the EPA's own National Ambient Air Quality Standards, NOx, emission limits of 35 micrograms per cubic meter in a 24-hour period. Using data from Purple Air PM 2.5 monitors in the yards of near neighbors who complain of PM 2.5 from hyperlocalized indoor residential wood burners would provide the missing and important evidence of this type of air pollution. Currently, if a near neighbor's complaint is made to a local health department, a complaint using federal NOx exceedance data is not considered as a basis for a complaint against neighboring indoor residential wood burning. It is also not considered as a basis for shutting down the wood burning appliance when the indoor residential wood stove has been federally EPA certified. Lawsuits for nuisance are expensive and beyond the means of the average American and are not considered precedents in courts generally. Contacting state agencies to shut down polluting wood stove use that affects the health and lives of near neighbors has been unproductive because decisions made by the EPA determine the decisions made by state agencies. Although the scope of your lawsuit seems confined to asking the EPA to continue their wood stove certification program as is, albeit at a faster pace, we ask that you consider the intent behind asking the EPA to tighten their standards for wood stove certification on a regular basis. The intent of an environmental protection agency is to protect the environment. This has perhaps been narrowly construed to be protecting air, water and ground from contamination from industries only. But United States citizens should actually benefit from this environmental protection as well. Tightening wood stove standards on a regular basis should result in protecting the environment as well as protecting United States citizens from harm from the air, water, and ground. We believe that the EPA's responsibilities are inextricably connected with public health responsibilities of other government agencies such as NIAID. Please try to accomplish something meaningful for the American people with this lawsuit by considering using a parallel track to include PM 2.5 data in future decisions about air quality standards. Although I am not your constituent, by commencing to sue a federal agency you are representing me as a citizen of the United States and in that sense as your constituent. Thank you. Sent to Cody.Doig@alaska.gov Alaska Senior Assistant Attorney General Cody Doig. Jason.James@ilag.gov Illinois Assistant Attorney General Jason James. Goldstein@oag.state.md.us Maryland Special Assistant Attorney General Stephen Goldstein. Turner.Smith@mass.gov Massachusetts Assistant Attorney General Turner Smith. Peter.Serdo@ag.state.mn.us Minnesota Special Assistant Attorney General Peter Serdo. Lisa.Morelli@law.njoag.gov New Jersey Deputy Attorney General Lisa Morelli. Nicholas.Batino@ag.new.gov New York Assistant Attorney General Nicholas Batino. Paul.Garahan@doj.state.or.us Oregon Attorney in Charge Paul Garahan. Steve.Novik@doj.state.or.us Oregon Special Assistant Attorney General Steve Novik. Nick.Persampieri@Vermont.gov Vermont Assistant Attorney General Nick Persampieri. Caroline.Kress@atg.wa.gov Washington Assistant Attorney General Caroline Kress. Chris.Wrights@atg.wa.gov Washington Assistant Attorney General Chris Wrights. Jennifer.cleanair.gov General Counsel, Puget Sound Clean Air Agency Jennifer A. Dold. Jean.Marazzo@nih.gov Director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases Jean Marazzo. Hugh.Auchincloss@nih.gov January to July 2023 Acting Director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases Hugh Auchincloss. Lawrence.Tabak@nih.gov Director of the National Institutes of Health Lawrence Tabak. https://RAC President Testword pre-ss.com/ Please attach PDF letter to NIAID Director Dr. Jean Marazzo to an email from you to Jean Marazzo NIH.gov/ Episode 56 GF July 19, 2023. The Ask, request a complaint-based system from 10 attorney generals suing the EPA to give wood stove users certainty. The Ask, emails of 3 NIH officials: Jean.Morazzo@nih.gov, Hugh.Auchincloss@nih.gov, Lawrence.Tabak@nih.gov. Emails of 13 Assistant Attorney Generals, Deputy Attorney Generals and General Counsel preparing to sue the EPA to provide clarity for indoor residential wood stove manufacturers, vendors, and users. Instead, the Assistant Attorneys General should ask for a PM 2.5 pollution complaint-based system in place of the failed wood stove certification program. The states involved are Alaska, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington, as well as the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency. A new icon has been added to the RAWSC President's website, which is now the nearest right icon. The icon is an ask that has already been described in episode 56 GB, description of the parties who should be at the table when deciding on safe wood stove emission limits and fence line measurements, rather than wood stove certification, and emails to contact 10 deputy or assistant attorney generals and 1 general counsel. Those PDFs are included at the icon link. Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, see https://rossipresidents.wordpress.com and click on the nearest right icon for the ask. 1. Email PDF letters to 3 officials of the National Institutes of Health, NIH, and NIID. https://rossipresident.wordpress.com/ Please attach PDF letter to NIID Director Dr. Jean Morazzo to an email from you to Jean Morazzo NIH.gov/ The Ask 2. Email PDF letters to 13 Assistant Attorneys Generals, Deputy Attorney Generals and General Counsel. https:// rossipresident.wordpress.com/ Please contact Attorneys General about August suit versus EPA asking for certainty for wood stove users. ROSSEP asks for complaint-based SITM based on PM monitor data exceeding EP/ to the right of that 3. Barbie goes to the dating game. https://rossipresidents.wordpress.com/ 1-Barbie-goes-to-the-dating-game to the right of that 4. Cookies that may contain rocks are recalled. https://rossipresidents.wordpress.com/ cookies-that-may-contain-rocks-are- recalled / to the right of that 5. The Fox Owns the Forest card game. https://rossipresidents.wordpress.com/ the fox owns the forest card game TBA. Then to the right of that, the latest months, 6, September and 7, August and 8, July 2023, of PDFs of articles with URLs to search on https://rossipresidents.wordpress.com/ 1-September-2023-PDFs-of-URLs https://rossipresidents.wordpress.com/ 1-August-2023-PDFs-of-URLs and https://rossipresidents.wordpress.com/ 1-July-2023-PDFs-of-URLs to the right of that. 9. Stickers to hand out for ROSSEP. 10. Flyers to hand out for ROSSEP, games such as 11. Bingo for ROSSEP. 12. Crosswords for ROSSEP. 13. PM 2.5's Jeopardy free game. https://youtube.be/lnsg32pydnc. 14. PM 2.5 free Monopoly. https://youtube.be/cuck1pscqnq and Endwood Smoke Monopoly. 9e. Vending machines for PM 2.5 monitors, and 15. Icon links to 30-minute YouTube videos and Spotify podcasts as well as podcasts.google.com, Castbox and Pocket Cast. Pocket Cast is only free on the phone app. Pocket Cast works on Apple phones, and, below those icons, icon links to monthly URLs of PDFs from June 2023 to May 2022.